Hello, everybody. Welcome to Trader Minute. It's great to have you aboard. I'm Carl. Thanks for tuning in this afternoon or late morning. And the market seems to be sleeping or something, but it's sleeping upright or something. The futures just want to keep going. I look here at the futures themselves, been going higher. So the freight train continues on the S&P. Come on, futures. There they are. It's pulled back a little bit here the last few minutes, but overall the freight train continues on the S&P. And the Fed's going to come out tomorrow. We got CPI numbers out tomorrow. We'll see what this market does by the end of the day. But some data came out this morning. It showed lower retail sales number, a really low consumer confidence number, and so it continues. Bad news is still good in this market, and good news can be bad based on the Feds. So right now, there's a little bit of a more of a rally that we're seeing today is just a reflection of some pretty bad numbers on the retail side and consumer confidence side, and that just saying the odds of the Feds doing anything, tapering anytime soon, are kicked further down the road. And Jeff was talking about this morning, they're so worried about deflationary numbers that could even increase. And there, what was it, the Dr. Doom, Mark Faber, he, a while ago, he says that he sees that he thinks that the Feds could go up to $1 trillion a month. That's way out there, and that's more of a shock statement to get some readers, I'd imagine. But them going higher, I wouldn't be surprised if things just don't seem to be getting better and the deflationary signs start to enter the economy. Then that might happen. Okay, well, we've been talking about the top three the last few weeks. Here, I really enjoy going out, digging through the market, finding some stocks that I think are set up to pretty well. So I've got three more today. And one of them we looked at yesterday, and I talked about it yesterday not being perfect, but it was one of those situations. Do you get in without before the confirmation, or do you wait for the confirmation? And that was Broadcom. And we talked about the volumes a little bit light. We've talked about volumes all over the place, light. Excuse me. Something I really like about this stock. And today, we're not going to have the heavy volumes, but it's going to be, let me bring in here through the eyes of a trend writer. And let me see if I got the zoom going here. Yes, we got the zoom going. What I really like about this setup right here, okay, so here's earnings. Had a really bullish candle. Let me, hang on. Let me do that again, because I'm noticing that it's a little bit off your screen. There you go. So earnings right here, you can see we had a very bearish earnings announcement. The thing dropped over $2, and for a $20 stock to drop a couple bucks, that's a pretty decent move. 8 or 9% move that day to reverse and rally almost $1.50. Never sold off the next few days, and then pushes up above the 7 yesterday. I like that setup right there. That's a pretty bullish setup, but as far as confirmation of a trend writer bull signal, jumping into the upper Bollinger Band is what we're after. Okay, right here, a stop at 27. You could go slightly lower than that if you wanted to. I'd probably put it initially at 20. No, I'd probably, let's say the 7-day average. It's just barely below. It's probably trading at 26.90. That wouldn't be much of a difference. If you put the stop on the average right here, the reason I don't like a lot of times like the number like 27.00 as my stop is because sometimes the stock can come right to that level. It's a big number, a little bit of resistance and support on it here in the past. They can come to that number like it did today. Let me back out a little bit. Yeah, it hit 27.01. Well, if I had to stop at 27 today, it would have barely flown. But I have a stop just under 27, like a dime lower. Well, if 27 holds, even goes a few cents lower than 27, I'm still in the trade. I'd like to keep my stops just under one of these numbers of support or resistance, depending on which way we're trading it. Okay. So I like the setup on this. I'm not too worried about the volumes because the stocks are just going on volumes right now, and they have been most of the year. All right, you see the big selling here. It looks like major selling going on, but look at the candles. Yeah, there was some initial sell, but most of this volume on their earnings announcement right here was a lot of buying the stock back up. So I like the breakout. Price target here, we talked about it a little bit yesterday. I would probably put it at 30. Just because this thing could go all the way, really is a bigger level up here at 33, but that's pretty darn aggressive. And that might take some doing. I'm going to look at this into the close today. I would be buying November's. Probably a couple strikes in the money is where I'd be going with that. And again, I'm going to be checking on this into the close today, about that last hour, as we normally do. Okay, the other one that I like, now let me bring this up for you, is Nike. Okay, and it sold off a little bit, but let me look at this through the eyes of the vibe. So with Broadcom, that would be a trend rider bull signal. Here on Nike, and it sold off a little bit, this is going for a vibe entrance. But what we need here in this case, let me zoom in. Right here is the level of resistance, pretty firm level, 76. I mean, how many days in a row, and we hit this going on 2 weeks? We've hit this level, can't seem to get through it. So we need definite confirmation here. Really, the longer it holds up their levels and doesn't sell off, the more bullish it gets. It also means typically when they break out after they consolidated for so long, the breakout can be pretty dramatic. So I like the setup going on here, but I want to wait for confirmation here. It's what I'd be looking for here is a strong candle. Let me show you what I think a strong candle would be. And sometimes you can get these candles into the day. So a strong candle in my book, it's going to have a bigger body to it, something like that. If it can close towards the top, even better, without much of a shadow coming out of the top of the candle. Here's another one right here. Something like that. And it's very chaseable. The 7's right here. So if you get a candle like that tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, something like that, it would easily set up. And the stock's probably going to 78 to 79 range. When you got stocks like this at these big time highs, it's tough to call, but like you always hear me saying, a couple dollars, sometimes $3 higher, it would be fairly safe as far as a price target goes. The stop, I'd put a stop. It's pretty close. Let me back out here. At this point, we're trading up in the 75.82 range, and it's been so flat. I mean, I can't just say, oh yeah, yesterday's close or something like that, because that's pretty much today's low. The low today is 75.54. We're trading just 30 cents higher than that. I'd want to give it a little bit more room to run than that. I mean, I could give it 75 as a stop, but I'd be looking for a push up through 76. I'd like a strong looking candle, and that push up through 76, let me zoom back in here. If I can get some volume, great. But on stocks that are already in an uptrend and then it triggers a new vibe bull signal, a lot of times you don't need heavy volume. If you get average volume, it can propel the stock higher. That's what I'd be looking for. Let me see. I mean, I can draw a little bit here. If I got a candle that looks something like this today, something like that, and I get, fairly average volume on here, to me it's a beautiful setup. It might even give us a little bit of time, because stocks that tend to beat their heads on these types of resistance levels can retest those levels where it's been such a strong and firm level, they can retest it. And that would even be further confirmation that it's going higher. But like Jeff said, I mean, if we wait for a retest, well, what if the stock just does one of these deals? Zoom back in. If you wait for a retest of a prior resistance, then it does this and just takes off. So do you wait for a retest to be a little bit more conservative? One or two things. It'll take off on you and then you miss the trade because it's gone so far so fast, you kind of miss it. Or you wait for the retest and it turns and bounces higher, and you waste a little bit of time, but sometimes these breakouts can be pretty dramatic and they don't really retest. And so what it does, if you jump in on a move, on a bull vibe entrance, is going to put you in for that next leg higher. To be concerned about it, if it did run higher and then comes back to retest to 76, well, if it broke 76 on some decent volumes, then that would be my exit. Okay. With the vibe trades, most of the time the exit's going to be the 7-day moving average. All right, but right now, see how close it is? That's not going to be the exit. Depends on if that pushes up, but I'm going to be watching this. It's not set up right now. Early in the day, it looked like it might break up through 76, but you can see it's pulled back. This is on the radar for sure. It's kind of like a Broadcom. Yesterday, it wasn't confirmed yet. This one is definitely not confirmed, and it doesn't even show the signs that it might run higher today. But we'll see in the coming days here, but it's right up there in the list. Last one is Applied Materials. This takes me back to my day trading days. I used to day trade, RIM, research in motion. You guys have been around a while. You remember RIMM. That and Applied Materials. I had a bunch of stocks that I love to trade. Now, with the Applied Materials, this is a TrendRider bull. I'm sorry, a Vibe bull entrance. Okay, remember the Vibe bull entrance? Want all three. We've got some newer people out there. We want all three of these major averages go in the same direction. So right here, you can see we've got, let me change that back, all three of these go in the same direction. You got the 50-day going up, you got the 100-day up as well, you've got the 200-day going up. All three of these go in the same direction. Now what we're looking for is a move higher, pushing up through the 7. More details, because it's pretty simple to say, well, just look for these things, but there's other details that you can look at it as well. Is it breaking resistance? Look at the volumes. Are the volumes strong? Really light volumes. Today might match yesterday's here. To get a break here above 18, I'd like to see that. It's been up at this level once, twice in the past. We're coming up again. Now the thing I like as well, let me zoom back in. I know I'm zooming around a lot, but I keep seeing things. Look at this bottom right here. All right. Then you had a little bit of a sell-off here, but then look at the next bottom. It was immediately bought up the next day of that sell-off. The next bottom's higher. This leads me to believe that this breakout might happen here. Might happen sooner than later. So the setups are there. Yeah, you can look at some other things. You could look at the MACD. Is that going to cross? It's a ways off. I don't really look at those indicators. The MACD's typically lagging anyways. But if I had more volume here, I'd feel more comfortable entering a trade right here, right now on it. We've talked about how these things just kind of run on volume. Run without the volumes. It's been kind of the talk. Okay. So there's the top three: Broadcom, Nike, Applied Materials. Today, if you asked me to jump into one right now, it'd be Broadcom. The Broadcom doesn't set up through a vibe. This is a vibe template that we've got here. All the averages are down. Now with a TrendRider, what we're spotting is breakouts. This has had a huge bottoming process. Big bottoming process. You could look and say, all right, well, if it breaks 28, that could be a bullish double bottom. Let's show you what I'm looking at with that. And I'm not looking at that pattern there, but You could argue that. So this would be a bullish double bottom when you've got, and for this to confirm, it would be the $28 level. You got that going for it. If you waited for confirmation here, we're going to give up about $1, where this thing is likely to run higher based on what I'm just showing you here. So I like that setup, and we're going to look at that into the close. Now we got the Feds announcing tomorrow. So I'm going to take a close look at this. I'm going to be talking with Jeff, see what he thinks about jumping in ahead of a Fed announcement. This announcement with the Fed, I stated this in chat. I don't know if they're going to drop any surprises. If they did, saying like earlier in this year, I forget the month, May or June, they didn't talk about tapering, and then when the Fed minutes were released a few weeks later, they had talked about tapering. It was going to start soon, and the market did not like that. I don't know if they're going to do that. Bernanke seems to be a little bit smarter nowadays. He didn't mention tapering. It's either the following month after June or a couple months later. No mention of it, and then came around in the press conference after and mentioned it there and how they were going to do it, and it was a much better situation. But based on today's numbers, I don't think Feds are going to be pulling out any surprises here. All right. Trina Solar. I want to look at Trina Solar. And this one yesterday I talked about it, and it looked just so appetizing. I mean, it had everything going for it. Let me zoom in on this. Okay, so I want to do a couple things. I'm going to show you what it had going for it, and then we're going to look at a little bit more detail. Okay, so this is what it had going for it. It had a TrendRider bear entrance. It had incredibly strong volumes. It had a big breakdown into the lower Bollinger Band. Had a little bit of a comeback during the day, and that's not a big deal. Sometimes these can be filled within a day or two if you get a good TrendRider bear setup going here. All right, but let's look at what happened over here. Yeah, if you were around earlier on in the challenge, I'm going to take you to Solar City. And let's zoom in here. So Solar City earlier in the challenge had and I gotta find it here. It had a beautiful entrance. It gapped up. I mean, it ran higher. It was right here. It just took me a second to find it. Now, for some reason, I got to go to TrendRider. This is just showing me October here. There we go. Very, very similar entrance. However, this wasn't a TrendRider. This was a very strong entrance based on more of a vibe type of an entrance. Right here, look at the volumes. Big time volumes, very strong push up through the 7. Big, beautiful, strong candle with hardly any wicks on it or shadows. Very bullish. We entered a trade on this, and all it did was go sideways and down. We exited, I think it was over a few days later right here when it had a big bearish candle dropping down. We took out, and we got a loss. And I was pretty disappointed. That was a beautiful setup, okay? Solar stocks have been like this for a long time. They can give you just the best looking signals, and there's no follow through. And that was a little bit frightening yesterday. Let me zoom back in, and I want to show you some things here. When we looked at Trina, notice what happens here. Right down over here, notice what happens. It comes from the upper band, right up in this level, comes to the lower, even on some volumes. Look at the volumes down here. Notice the selling volumes, how they're much higher than the buying volumes. A very bearish sign. And once it hit that lower band, what did it do? Just skyrocketed. Same thing over here. It comes down to the lower band. Same thing. Look at the volumes, how the sell-in volumes are outweighing the others, and it's breaking some support levels. And what happens when it hits the lower band? It's off and running again. That's what we were scared of. That's why we didn't exit and enter that trade yesterday. And it's why I'm hesitant to jump in on it. And then first thing this morning, come across an article stating how Trina Solar and a lot of the other solar stocks are all undervalued. They should be being bought up in this range. And the stock's up 60 cents. It's still a relatively weak move. I wouldn't be surprised to run lower. I'm just not going to trade this. Even the best confirmation here doesn't seem to do a whole lot of good. I guess the confirmation would be, hey, it's a beautiful bearish signal right here. Better go buy calls. And it's worked so far this year. But I'm not going to trade like that. It goes against my being to trade against technicals. Okay, not going to do that. All right, I want to run through some other stocks with you. Tesla. I know that some of you are in Tesla. 160 is a little bit of a level for it right here, but very bearish looking. If I'm in the trade, I wouldn't be getting out. Still in the lower Bollinger Band. The sell volume still remain high. It might take some doing to get through 160, but there's not a lot of good news back in this stock. Next level from 160 is likely 140. It could test 150, but the bigger level down there is at 140. Yeah, it's still showing the bearish signs. And the thing I like about this, the trend it's started here, which is a little bit of a bearish trend. The thing I like about it is you notice how it's just kind of riding the 7. It's not getting away from it, just kind of hanging right there. Those are some nice little trades to be in as it just kind of churns lower like that. You don't have to get too run out, got to sell it today type things, because it's just riding that 7. And those are some of the best vibe entrances too, the bull vibes and the bear vibes, where you're just riding the trend, riding the overall trend. And if it just stays by the 7, you can stay in it longer. Other stocks that I want to show you. I want to show you AIG. Now AIG would be a vibe. So it's got the uptrend going here. To me, a signal. Couple of things going for this here. Let me zoom in. What I like about this, and what I'd wait for here as well, I like the uptrend. It's up and down and up and down. Check out past resistance right here at 51. Now, if this is the next higher low right here, you notice how it didn't make it down to 51 to retest that level. Okay, so a push higher here above 52 on a decent looking candle. Again, I want to see at least something in this range. It doesn't have to be big and dramatic. In fact, I'd like it a little bit, something like these. Just medium-sized bodies, very small shadows on them, breaking up and out of 52. Be a great vibe bull entrance. Had a little bit of some reason that is sending me back to the month chart when I click out of that. Had a little gravestone doji up here. You notice there wasn't a lot of follow through. It went down, it got weak for a little bit, but now it looks to push higher. And the volumes, you look at the volumes, you could say, well, yeah, it looks like the buying. Let me zoom so you can see what I'm seeing. You can say, well, it looks like the selling's been more than the buying, but whenever you see the selling, always look up and see what the candle is doing. It's not breaking anything. It's not breaking any big support zones or anything like that. Okay, so the lighter volumes, I'd like it to get some nice volume, something like that if I could get it. But if this pushes up, what it is, it's confirming more upside. So we're going along in a vibe bull, got an uptrend intact. A vibe bull helps spot these these higher lows and ride it to the next level. Here it could go up to the $55 level. All right. Okay, I've got a lot of emails recently saying, hey, what are you looking for? The last few days here in the top 3, they've been doing all right. The trade's been looking okay. What am I looking for those entrances? Well, it's a secret. No. I found a magic cleaner for my crystal ball. Seems to get it just right where I can see a little bit deeper into it. No, let's just go through it. All right, so let's look at some of the trades recently. Well, let's start off with RTN. Talked about this last Friday. And RTN, what I was looking for. Let me zoom in. Okay, so it's more, I look for a little bit more. Got to make sure this is, you're seeing it on your screen there. Okay. I try to read into a little bit more, just a little bit more confirmation rather than just a trend writer or a vibe. Okay, this one actually matched the trend writer and the vibe. If I put the vibe, I'm not going to do it right now, but if I put, this is a trend writer template, and what I was looking for here with the trend writer template is for the RSI to break up above 50. And if it's already in an uptrend above 50, that's okay. And then I wanted to push into the upper band. And then down below that you can't see, I want that the Bollinger Band width to rise. And when the Bollinger Band width rises, it just says the bands are expanding. It doesn't point the direction of the stock. It just says the bands are expanding. As you can see, the bands are expanding and are still expanding. Okay, now look at the volumes. Check out the volumes down here. We got huge volumes, and this is aided by an earnings announcement. So let me take some of these off for you. And this is the earnings announcement right here. This little day right there. Okay, they had an announcement that couldn't, in my opinion, couldn't have been a lot better. They beat their estimates. They raised guidance. The revenues were higher. All the high-end numbers, I mean, all the headline numbers were just beautiful. Northrop Grumman was up that day. Lockheed Martin was up that day. And the one that got the numbers was down. RTN, right? Raytheon. But look what happened during the day. It rallied back, about a dollar into the close, to close basically right at a little bit of support level that we've seen from this area right here, September-ish. Close right there. The next day, trend writer bull signal. The competitors, Lockheed were rallying, Northrop Grumman rallying. It's in my opinion, and it's setting a trend writer bull signal. Everything around this, it's got the earnings out of the way. It was good. It got sold off. And everything was telling me that that was going up, and the volume was even there to confirm it. If you look at the volume that day, this was screaming for an entrance. I've been watching for that for a while. It ended up getting it. Okay. Now we had 4 positions on Friday. That's why we didn't jump into these trades. I know some of you did, and congratulations. All right, another stock that I looked at. This was again last Friday, Joy Global. And so what was it here? Let's zoom in. And I got to go out just a little bit so I can get the dates here. Okay, so we had the normal trend writer, the vibe, the trend writer signals. You got the RSI rising up above 50. Okay. You've got the Bollinger Band width was increasing. And the day that I talked about this was last Friday, if my memory serves me correct. It could have been Thursday. My memory's bad. It's good, but it just doesn't last very long. Anybody else is like that? Was it there? Someone's got to correct me if I'm wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Was right. I'm almost positive it was right there. And now the reason I like this, because look what happened. Now they gapped down on Caterpillar's bad news. And there wasn't even an almond that day. I mean, I was driving to work, and I saw a nice Ford pickup that had Joy Global on the side of it. I guess that was my omen to buy Joy Global that day. But then the chart set up perfectly. Now look what happened. They gapped down on Caterpillar's news, They gapped down a couple dollars, well, $1.50. They got all the way down to 53. By the end of the day, it turned and ran positive on strong volume. Big volume. I mean, that's huge volume. Let me show you the volume on that day right there. Oh, that might be the day prior. Sorry, the next day. But had some big volumes come in on a strong reversal, as you know, as I think and Jeff thinks, that people realized it was more of a Caterpillar issue than a Joy Global or sector type of an issue, and they rallied strong. So trend rider bull signal, very strong reversal candle on nothing that they did to run positive. See, so I'm looking for more than just the normal trend rider bulls, trend rider bears, or the vibe entrances. Digging a little bit deeper. Could there be candlesticks patterns? You bet. That can help out as well. All right. And then yesterday, well, we talked about Broadcom. Hang on just for a second. I'll be right back. All right. And then yesterday, St. Jude's. Now, we talked about St. Jude's. We've been watching this since last week, watching and waiting for a run here. And so yesterday, it formed a trend rider bull signal. Let me show you what I mean by a trend rider bull signal. So I'm looking at all the reasons. Oops. For this. So a trend rider bull. Now the RSI, you notice how it's rising. Okay, it's not breaking up above 50. That's okay. You know, you look at the trend. As long as the trend's intact, the RSI rising, it doesn't have to be breaking through 50. It's still going. Okay, and it pierced the outer band yesterday. I couldn't find my pointer for a second. So it pierces the outer band yesterday. It had some pretty decent volumes to the upside. Notice how the volumes have picked up here a little bit. Okay, and then if I put, so that's a trend rider, but then you put a vibe on this, also got a vibe entrance. So with a vibe, notice all three of the major averages are up. I can get that to draw. All three go in the same direction, and then it pushes higher actually 2 days ago. Now I waited a little bit more confirmation to see if 57 was hold. Now 57 held and pushed up strongly yesterday on some good volumes, and today is going to be pretty good volumes too. This is telling me it's going to go higher. You know, this could go up into the $60 range at this point. A stop would just be on 57. Or, I'm sorry, the 7-day moving average, which is at 57. That would be the stop. Put it up into up to the $60 range, not out of the question. So St. Jude's. Nice looking setup. We also looked at Broadcom yesterday. I won't go, we already looked at that. That's the top stock that I would choose today if I'm going to be making a trade. Other stocks I want to show you is it's Capital One, but I've got to put this on a trend rider. Okay, so if you look at this, what kind of a trend we got going? Well, pretty decent uptrend, right? Couple things here. Here's past resistance, and that's on a big number of 70. We're coming back to retest that level. If I put this on a vibe, you'll notice typically when you find a stock in these really strong uptrends like that, all the major averages are going to be up. So without bringing the vibe template in here, trust me, they're all up. The entrance here would be a strong move, a good size. I'd like a candle like something like this right here, something like that. Some, nice looking Marubozu candles. pushing up through the 7. If I can get volumes, even better. But what we're doing here is trying to find a higher low. We're trying to pinpoint that higher low. That's what the vibes will do, and sometimes the trend writers will do that as well. And you can look up here and you can say, well, look at that. That's big time selling going on. But as always, look and see what the selling's doing. Is it breaking any big levels of support in the case of an uptrend? No. It came up, hit down, it's retesting 70. It pushed higher here up above 71, up through that 7 like that. If you can get volumes, to match the 50-day average I got in here, let's say a few days ago, the red one here, you can get volumes like that. This thing's probably heading up. And I like this entrance right here because we'd be getting in around the 71 to 71.5 level, likely to push up through 73, going into new highs, maybe hit the upper Bollinger Band, which could be around the 74 range, which could be a really nice move for a stock like this. They got an ad board in your office's parking lot on BlackBerry. Yeah, don't rush out and buy these guys. These guys have been all over the news, right? With the Apple. Apple took a big bite out of these guys, and they've been up for sale, and they've been real volatile, and people think they might not last much longer. And is it? Anybody really want to buy them? It's been all over the place. Yeah, don't around and go out and buy calls on these guys. The bands are really tight in there, but this is one of those, they could go tight for a month. I don't even want to bring up a chart of Dell. I don't even look at those charts. The bands are like an eighth of an inch wide because it's not going anywhere. All right, let's look at Google. That's funny, Max. Thanks. Now Google, okay, went up, broke 100. Sorry, 1,000. Here went up, broke 1,000, and in true form, what did it do? It retested that level, it got a strong bounce off of it. A few days later, now what we're doing, is that a higher low locked in right here? It very well could be. It around the 118 mark, something like that, maybe 113 mark. Sorry, you know what I'm saying? 1,013. A push higher here. The only thing I don't like about this move, and for Google to have light volume, I'd like to see heavier volume. That is almost non-existent for Google. Google gets the volume, and it's just not getting a whole lot today. That's pretty low. That's the only thing about Google. Another chart I want to show you is Walgreens. Okay, this one had a nice looking gravestone, almost not quite picture perfect, but a really nice looking gravestone. No follow through today. So if we look at this technically, where's resistance? 59, right? Another thing we got going for it here too is look at the averages. They're all headed higher. Resistance at 59. It broke that level, rallied up, and typically what's going to be the bigger levels of resistance, the multiples of 10, so 60. Had some decent volumes yesterday. Today, not going to be as much as yesterday. But look at the big gravestone here. No follow through. Really a retest here of 59 and a push higher on a stronger candle might be the trick for it. And that might take a few days. It might take a few days for that to happen. But the fact this isn't selling off very hard, if it broke through 59, I'd be a little bit bearish. It's still got a nice uptrend intact. I'd be a little bit bearish on it in the short term. But right now, going sideways at this level, so let that 7 catch up to it a little bit, and it shakes off a bearish gravestone doji, would be very bullish, and the stock's probably headed up higher. But kind of an interesting chart there on Walgreens. Facebook, if it closed right here, you've got I just keep laughing at Max's comment. Sorry. You've got it's a dragonfly doji, but in this case, it's at the end of a little bit of a downtrend. A small drop right here. Okay, I'll go take a look at him, Jay. And so it still means reversal. And you can see the volumes are going to be pretty strong today down there. They're not bad at all. They're going to equal at least yesterday's, if not a little bit higher than yesterday, above the average there. A little bit of a bullish sign here for Facebook. Now, I'm not going to jump into it. It's below. You look at it trading below the 7-day moving average. I'm not going to jump out and buy calls until that can reverse and it gets it back above the 7. But I wanted to point that out. Okay, let's look at Yelp. Now, do they have earnings or anything like that? Let me just run real fast and check. Yeah, the 29th. So today, huh? You might get it. I mean, this could be one of those situations where I've never traded this stock. I don't know how it's going to react. Just looking at past history, at the end of July right here, you get that, you're going to be loving it, Max. I mean, Jay, sorry. Big time move. And then right here, in May, first part of May. If you get that this time around, maybe that's probably what you're looking at, Jay. You'll be loving it, huh? I'm sure you got some calls here. So yeah, I've got my fingers crossed for you. My crystal ball's a little bit murky on that one with the earnings announcement, but good luck. LinkedIn. Technically, it looks pretty good, but the earnings announcement can change that really fast. We'll see what they do on earnings. And what a stock. Wow. I mean, this thing came out, went public not that long ago, 2-3 years ago. I don't know, maybe time goes by too fast for me. But it's just been on a tear ever since. Yeah, Facebook could see a little bit of, might get a little bit of boost out of those two. Okay, let's run through our positions real fast. Well, I want to go check on XLE. I've been watching XLE all morning. And it gets up about this level and rolls back over. If I look at this on, you might have noticed when I first brought this up, that's what I was looking at here. Okay, it's been getting up, it's broken up through this level here. I'm going to watch this pretty close. If this level holds at a higher low right here, I might just go ahead and take it off. Okay, so I'm going to keep my eyes on that this afternoon. This has been the one that's just kind of irked me. And the reason is that right there. The S&P is on this locomotive that doesn't want to stop. And that's the drag higher here on XLE. Okay, let's look at TLT. Down about 15 cents. This is a no call for this technical action. It could go a little bit lower than this, but so far, just hanging in there. Now, SLV, flat. You looked at gold stocks, a lot of gold stocks rolling over. Gold has been down a little bit today. This, to hold its own, and it's traded up to, I've seen it as high as 8 cents higher, which isn't anything. But to hold its own like this, when gold's going down, pretty positive for silver. All right, so liking that. So far, so good here on SLV. All right, let's do some of the Vegas stocks. Las Vegas Sands. This thing doesn't want to roll over. It is below the 7. It's above 70. See, it's not reaching 70. For me to get really bearish, I want to see this break 70. I know that might take some doing, But the fact that every time it dips lower above 70 and holds it, it's a little bit bullish. Yet you look at like an MGM, it's up slightly. Earlier in the day, this was down into that lower Bollinger Band, but I think the market's grips a little bit on these things. Now, this is really close to a trendwriter bear setup, but it's got to break 20, run down into that lower band, and you get yesterday's volume on a rundown, breaking through 20, breaking into that lower Bollinger Band. The stock next stop for it's probably 18, which would be a very nice reward on a $20 stock. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm watching for here. That looks a lot weaker than Las Vegas Sands. And then Wynn. This is pushing a little bit down off the, breaking down a little bit off that 7 right there. A little bit, they had the earnings announcement not too long ago, just last week sometime. Another stock. Now this is U.S. Steel. Talked a lot about U.S. Steel, and U.S. Steel, they announced a $1.8 billion loss. It was just under 1.8 billion. I thought it was funny because, and in the report that I read said that they had a loss of 1,789 million. What a better way to disguise a 1.8 billion dollar loss than put it in millions. It's only 1,800 millions. Anyways, but guess what? That was lower than expected. So, it's down 40 cents, lower than expected loss. It still didn't gain much out of it, but overall that wasn't too bad compared to what was expected there. All right, well, I'm going to be on chat with you the rest of the day. I'll be watching the positions closely, and I'll let you know if we do make any changes. For sure, I'll be letting you know. If you have any questions, just chat them on in. You can reach me through email as well. It's Carl with a C at traderminute.com. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.